Please welcome former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton.
Hillary Clinton.
Happening in America. You can feel it. Something we've worked for and dreamed of for a long time. First, though, let's salute President Biden. Democracy's champion at home and abroad. He brought dignity, decency, and confidence back to the White House. And he showed what it means to be a true patriot. Thank you, Joe Biden, for your lifetime of service and leadership. A new chapter in America's story. You know, my mother Dorothy was born right here in Chicago before women had the right to vote. That changed 104 years ago yesterday. Think about it. Tennessee became the final state to ratify the 19th Amendment to the Constitution. The state legislature was deadlocked until one lawmaker's mother, a widow who read 3 newspapers a day, sent a letter to her son. "No more delays," she wrote. "Give us the vote." And since that day, every generation has carried the torch forward. In 1972, a fearless black congresswoman named Shirley Chisholm nomination, let me and millions of others dream bigger, not just because of who she was, but because of who she fought for. Working parents, poor children, the last, the least, and the lost. In 1984, I brought my daughter to see Geraldine Ferraro, the first woman nominated for vice president. If we can do this, Jerry said, we can do anything. And then there was 2016, when it was the honor of my life to accept our party's nomination for president. And nearly 66 million Americans voted for a future where there are no ceilings on our dreams. And afterwards, we refused to give up on America. Millions marched, many ran for office. We kept our eyes on the future. Well, my friends, the future is here. My mother and Kamala's mother could see us. They would say, keep going. Shirley and Jerry would say, keep going. Women fighting for reproductive health care are saying, keep going. Better lives, parents stretching to afford child care, young people struggling to pay their rent. They're all asking us to keep going. So, with faith in each other and joy in our hearts, let's send Kamala Harris and Tim Walz to the White House. And the history of our country is that progress is possible but not guaranteed. We have to fight for it and never, ever give up. There is always a choice. Do we push forward or pull back? Come together as we the people, or split into us versus them? That's the choice we face in this election. Kamala has the character, experience, and vision to lead us forward. I know her heart and her integrity. We both got our start as young lawyers, helping children who were abused and neglected. That kind of work changes a person. Those kids stay with you. Kamala carries with her the hopes of every child she protected, every family she helped, every community she served. So as president, she will always have our backs, and she will be a fighter for us. She will fight to lower costs for hardworking families, open the doors wide for good-paying jobs, and yes, she will restore abortion rights nationwide. As a prosecutor, Kamala locked up murderers and drug traffickers. She will never rest in defense of our freedom and safety. Donald Trump fell asleep at his own trial. And when he woke up, he made his own kind of history, the first person to run for president with 34 felony convictions. As Vice President, Kamala sat in the Situation Room. We also know, as Vice President, Kamala sat in the Situation Room and stood for America's values. I know what it takes, and I can tell you, as Commander-in-Chief, Kamala won't disrespect our military and our veterans. She reveres our Medal of Honor recipients. She won't be sending love letters to dictators. She will defend democracy and our Constitution and will protect America from enemies, foreign and domestic. The Constitution says the president's job is to take care that the laws be faithfully executed. Those are the words of our founders. Take care. Just look at the candidates. Kamala cares about kids and families, cares about America. Donald only cares about himself. On her first day in court, Kamala said 5 words that still guide her. Kamala Harris, for the people. That is something that Donald Trump will never understand. So it is no surprise, is it, that he is lying about Kamala's record. He's mocking her name and her laugh. Sounds familiar. But we have him on the run now. So, no matter what the polls say, we can't let up. We can't get driven down crazy conspiracy rabbit holes. We have to fight for the truth. We have to fight for Kamala as she will fight for us. Because you know what? It still takes a village to raise a family, heal a country, and win a campaign. And America needs every one of us. Our energy, our talents, our dreams. We're not just electing a president, we're uplifting our nation. We're opening the promise of America wide enough for everyone. Together, we've put a lot of cracks in the highest, hardest glass ceiling. And tonight, so close to breaking through once and for all, I want to tell you what I see through all those cracks and why it matters for each and every one of us. What do I see? I see freedom. I see the freedom to make our own decisions about our health, our lives, our loves, our families. The freedom freedom to work with dignity and prosper, to worship as we choose or not, to speak our minds freely and honestly. I see freedom from fear and intimidation, from violence and injustice, from chaos and corruption. I see the freedom to look our children in the eye and say, in America, you can go as far as your hard work and talent will take you, and mean it. And you know what? On the other side of that glass ceiling is Kamala Harris raising her hand and taking the oath of office as our 47th President of the United States. Because, my friends, when a barrier falls for one of us, it falls. It falls and clears the way for all of us. So for the next 78 days, we need to work harder than we ever have. We need to beat back the dangers that Trump and his allies pose to the rule of law and our way of life. Don't get distracted or complacent. Talk to your friends and neighbors. Volunteer. Be proud champions for the truth and for the country that we all love. I want my grandchildren and their grandchildren to know I was here at this moment, that we were here, and that we were with Kamala Harris every step of the way. This is our time, America. This is when we stand up. This is when we break through. The future is here. It's in our grasp. Let's go win it.
That was former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, the 2016 Democratic nominee, speaking to this packed arena tonight on this day of a historic moment here in Chicago. Democrats energized, rallying around the party's new nominee, Vice President Kamala Harris. The DNC is branding tonight's theme For the People, a nod to the VP's background as a prosecutor. You heard Hillary Clinton make a similar reference in her speech a moment ago. Harris arriving earlier this evening to loud cheers for her first appearance at this convention. The vice president making a point to thank President Biden and deliver an optimistic message to the crowd. Here's some of what she said.
Every corner of our country and every walk of life are here, united by our shared vision for the future of our country. And this November, we will come together and declare with one voice, as one people, we are moving forward.
A speech, not the speech we'll hear later in the week, but Kamala Harris again talking to the crowd here. We've already seen some of the biggest names in Democratic politics speak this evening. Hillary Clinton, of course, you just heard, along with Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. But tonight really belongs to President Biden. Coming up just moments from now, we will witness something that's never happened in modern American history. A sitting first-term president making his case for his second in command instead of a second term, and passing the torch to a new generation. For more on the night ahead, let's bring in Meet the Press moderator Kristen Welker and our senior Washington correspondent Hallie Jackson. Kristen, start us off. We're going to hear from the president today. This is a moment of transition for this party. We've heard some of the ideas of what we'll hear from him. Give us your sense of the bar he needs to cross tonight.
This is an extraordinary night, Lester. This is not the convention that Democrats were anticipating they would have just a month ago. They thought President Biden would be at the top of the ticket. Instead, tonight he will be passing the torch to Vice President Kamala Harris officially, if somewhat reluctantly, because, of course, he fought till the very end to stay at the top of the ticket. But that won't be on display tonight, I am told. He is going to deliver a full-throated, not only endorsement, but call to action to defeat Donald Trump, to elect Vice President Kamala Harris. I'm told he's going to talk about the things that he's proud of that he has accomplished, remind the country about the dire situation when he took office in 2021, a country that was coming out of COVID. And he's going to make the case that he did not do this on his own. So this is not going to be his final farewell speech. This is going to be, yes, a moment to reflect on his legacy, but really to lean into a full-throated endorsement of Vice President Kamala Harris. You can feel the energy and the excitement in the room. You saw that with Hillary Clinton's speech. This crowd energized tonight. Like
let me bring Hallie into this. You were talking about what Kristen just mentioned there about what he plans to do tonight. Has there been some lag in this campaign right now as to how best to use President Biden?
I spoke with one of his closest advisors earlier today who said that he is going to act as a kind of volunteer-in-chief for Vice President Kamala Harris and do what the campaign asks him to do, whatever that may be. So he is apparently going to be taking a backseat role in this campaign moving forward, but certainly vocal and out there in what, as Kristen describes, is going to be a call to action tonight. Of course, before President Biden gets to that speech, he is going to, in the words of the DNC chair to me earlier, he's going to get his flowers. And boy, have you heard those flowers here tonight. Again and again, these speakers here at the Democratic National Convention on night one have taken the stage to effusively thank President Biden for what he has done, for what they see as his act of selflessness, stepping off the ticket. And look at what the numbers have shown us in just the last 24 to 72 hours here. We're getting in new polling from key battleground states and new national polling showing that, yes, Vice President Kamala Harris has not only gained ground on former President Trump, in some cases pulling even with or ahead of him in some of these polls within the margin of error, she is doing better than President Biden was doing against former President Trump. And that is in so many ways the rationale for this move in the first place and what helps us set the table for the week ahead. Because while this is not President Biden's convention, as it may have been a month ago, this tonight is his moment. After this, he's out of here. And it is Kamala Harris's convention, very clearly.
Yeah, it's absolutely right. And what is so striking about this moment is how unified the Democratic Party seems to be right now. They are unified because they're looking at those polls, energized by the idea that this is a real fight. They can see a potential victory in their sights. And you really heard that when we were just listening to Secretary Clinton speak. The only other woman to win a major party nomination. She talked about Kamala Harris's candidacy in historic terms, breaking through that glass ceiling. What's so notable to me, Lester, is that we've not really heard Vice President Harris lean into the historic nature of her candidacy. So it was powerful that you had Secretary Clinton doing that. She will undoubtedly continue to try to remind voters of that. But it speaks to this moment that we are in. You heard her talk about reproductive rights. The gender gap right now is yawning. It's 20 to 30 points, depending on which poll you are looking at. And that could be a huge factor in who wins this election.
We're, of course, following the schedule, how close they are on time. But we can tell you, we came on the air with Hillary Clinton because that went over partly, I would suspect, from the thunderous ovation that she received leading into this. Tom Yamas is down on the floor right now at the convention. Maybe you can more adequately describe the energy that we're certainly feeling up here.
Yeah, Lester, I will tell you there is electricity in this room, there is energy in this room, and there is enthusiasm in this room. Right now, they're listening to Representative James Clyburn from South Carolina. But as you mentioned, when Hillary Clinton was talking, I couldn't even hear what she was saying because it was so loud. We have multiple cameras here on the ground of the convention floor for our NBC News special coverage. I'm going to ask our photographer, Guy Hernandez, to give us a spin around here of the United Center. Every single seat in the United Center is filled right now. You may know this area in Chicago. This is where Michael Jordan started with championships, and then he built that into dynasties. The Democratic Party hopes the same thing starts with Kamala Harris. Joining me here is Kristen Hamill, and she had a poster that stood out to me. One, because it is reminiscent of when President Obama was running, then Senator Obama, and so many people were voting for him. They were so energized by his campaign. On my way to the United Center, I saw something I hadn't seen in a long time. There was merchandise for Vice President Kamala Harris. You really didn't see that with President Joe Biden. You really didn't see that with Secretary Hillary Clinton, to be completely honest. But you're seeing that excitement here for Kamala Harris. So, Kristen, let me ask you, you're from Rhode Island. Why is there so much excitement here?
I think because we're moving forward, and she's given us a lot of hope. And I also believe that we all understand that Donald Trump poses an existential threat to our environment, to NATO, and to the judicial guardrails of the United States, so democracy.
What do you hope to hear from President Biden? I got to think for Democrats, this is somewhat of an awkward moment. The nomination was wrestled away from him. He earned it. He got all those votes. He was president for 4 years. What do you hope he says? And is that feeling alive at all in this arena, do you think?
I think people feel a lot of gratitude. One of the reasons I'm featuring on this dress, President Biden, is because he did something that was very patriotic. He walked away from power. It's very much like what George Washington did. So I think he's here to be thanked by these people who really think he's done a lot for the country in the past, but it was his time to step down because of his age.
Kristen Hamill from Rhode Island, we thank you so much. Lester, that's the sentiment really from a lot of the delegates here and the people on the floor. People are excited. There's energy in here. But again, there is some sort of trepidation. What will President Biden say? A lot of people say he's going to stay with the party line. He's going to support Kamala Harris and pass that torch. Lester, back to you.
All right, Tom, thanks. Let's go over to Peter Alexander. I believe, Peter, you are in the state of Washington section.
Yep, we're in the state of Washington section. And Lester, if you're trying to find us in a dark arena like this, it's not hard. We've got the best dressed, best decorated, most lit up delegation there is from Washington State right now. More than 130 delegates here, including some of the youngest in the entire United Center right now. Jonica, you're from Seattle, Washington. One of the biggest concerns coming into this convention was that Joe Biden may not be able to get all those young people to come back the Democratic ticket, but you believe Kamala Harris will. What have you heard from those sort of in your demographic group? You're still 17 years old. You don't turn 18 till when?
I will turn 18 on October 20th, which is also Kamala Harris's birthday.
And so are younger people excited about this new Democratic ticket in a way? Are you feeling that new energy?
Yes, I'm the chair of the Washington High School Democrats. I'm on the ground talking with high schoolers every single day, and they are excited about this ticket, and it goes beyond just casting votes. Young people want to get involved. They want to do more than just vote for Kamala Harris. They want to canvass for her. They want to talk to their friends and their family. They want to organize, and they want to get involved because they want to be part of this movement because they know we're making history.
Jonica's a good talker. We may be covering you in the future. Nice to meet you as well. And there's some history being made here as well, because with me, the delegation head is the only Southeast Asian woman delegation head in either party, as I understand it, in history. The potential to have the first Southeast Asian president of the United States. This for you is a historic event to be a part of.
It just feels incredible to think of someone who looks like me, whose mom looks like my mom. It just means like that we're at the table, that we're really here, that we are fully America, and we're part of this moment.
And Lester, what strikes me right now as you see these guys, you can't miss these gorgeous hats that they helped dial up here, right? But also the sashes. They say Cowboy Kamala after Cowboy Carter. For those a little bit younger than me, that's Beyonce's new album. Of course, the song Freedom, the anthem, the unofficial anthem of the Harris-Walz campaign. Lester?
Yeah, Peter, one of the fun things about doing these conventions is the personalization of some of what we see on the floor. So thanks for bringing that story to us. Joining us now is Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. He's joining us here tonight in his capacity as a surrogate for the Harris campaign. Great to see you. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thanks for having me on.
Before we talk about the president's speech and all that, let's talk about you for a second. Your name was out there as on the short list as a potential VP nominee. You could have been on the stage tonight. Any sense of disappointment?
No, I was honored to be mentioned, but I'm very excited about the Harris-Walz ticket. I just ran into Tim Walz in the hallway back there. He is the real deal. I've known him for some time, worked with him, and the thing that I keep thinking about with him is I've seen campaigns spend millions of dollars to make a candidate seem like the kind of guy who would be a football coach, a classroom teacher, a 24-year National Guardsman. He is that guy. And, of course, as a Midwesterner, I'm a little biased, too. Excited to see a Midwestern governor on the ticket.
We're going to hear President Biden here in just a few minutes. If you think about it, he's really someone who the party basically said, we can do better without you. Now, you can change the language, but the idea was that for the chance to win, the party had to move on past Joe Biden. What signal does that send as he comes out tonight in support of the nominee?
Well, I think with a signal you're going to see is one of solidarity. Look, our party is not always known for quickly and easily unifying around any decision, and yet it coalesced in a matter of hours around Kamala Harris. And I think tonight you're going to see a lot of love for Joe Biden for really two reasons. One, his selfless decision, and two, his success as president.
Do the results justify the means, though, how this came about?
Well, it was his decision, and it is so world historically rare for the most powerful person in the world to willingly lay aside power simply because it is the right thing to do and pass it to a new generation. So again, I think you're going to see a lot of appreciation for that. But also, one thing I know about him is he continues to be extremely focused on the future, both in terms of his presidency and what I think he's going to ask the country to do tonight, which is to carry the best things forward to support this new leader, but also one who's going to be able to maintain things like the historic job growth that we're seeing right now, the manufacturing boom that's happening in the industrial Midwest, where I grew up, instead of the manufacturing recession that we had under Donald Trump, and all the other results that we've had under the Biden-Harris team.
As someone who ran for the nomination cycle back, Brent, if I get that correct, how has running for president changed as you watch this campaign and how quickly it has come together under these extraordinary circumstances?
Well, I think one of the things that's changed is the role of attention, because we do have digital media, different forms of organizing, and so it's become much more challenging to have a kind of consistent story that everybody's seeing at the same time. That's why organizing matters. It's why outreach to very different constituencies matters, and it's why we as a party have to be smart, as I believe the vice president has been, about beating back the crazy nonsense that comes from Donald Trump every day. You know, today it was attacking people who won the Medal of Honor. I'm sure tomorrow will be something else. Dealing with that, condemning it, but then swiftly returning to the actual topic at hand, which is not about the personalities of the candidates. It's about the lives of everyday Americans.
Well, speaking about Donald Trump, you know, there was a lot said when Joe Biden was the presumptive nominee that there was a discipline that the Democrats were seeing in the Trump campaign and in Trump himself. Many argue he seems to be having trouble focusing on the line of attack against Kamala Harris. Are you worried the other Donald Trump will come back, the more disciplined candidate?
Well, you know, certainly what we've seen right now is a pretty chaotic Trump campaign, but I actually think there's a bit of a strategy in the crazy things that he's blurting out, and it's that he doesn't want us talking about his actual agenda or his actual results. His unpopular agenda of continuing to demolish a woman's right to choose, tax cuts for the rich, all of the other things that are in Project 2025, and his really problematic results. Part of what we have to remind the American people of, the fact that crime was higher under Donald Trump than it is today, the fact that manufacturing jobs were in a recession under Donald Trump compared to what it is today, the fact that even energy production, something conservatives talk about a lot, was lower under Donald Trump. It's higher today. So whether we're talking about results or whether we're talking about unpopular policies, he can't afford for the conversation to be about that, which is why he wants it to be about whatever crazy thing he blurts out tomorrow.
Secretary Buttigieg is going to talk to you. I think you like Pete?
Yeah, I can't go by Secretary while I'm on air in this capacity, so fair to just call me Pete this time.
All right. Well, thanks. Good to have you here. Thanks so much for your time. Well, still ahead this evening, tonight's biggest speeches, including the First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden, and a historic keynote address from President Biden, his message to the nation as he passes the torch to Vice President Harris. Much more live from the DNC in Chicago right after this. Welcome back to our special coverage of the first night of the Democratic National Convention. Soon here at the DNC, we'll hear from the First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden, who will pay tribute to her husband's decades-long career in Democratic politics. Then we'll hear from President Biden himself as he makes his case for Vice President Harris less than a month after he stepped aside as the Democratic nominee. But for now, Texas Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett is on the stage. Let's listen.
Listen, y'all, he's only looked out for one person, himself. As women are dying, he is bragging about overturning Roe. And y'all know I come from Texas. And right now in Texas, come on, Texas. But right now in Texas, they want to institute the death penalty. That is a problem. While Kamala Harris is fighting for our reproductive rights to be restored. She is also the leader we need on the global stage. She helped secure the release of Americans wrongfully detained in Russia. At the same time, he cozies up to his role model, Vladimir Putin, and MAGA holds legislation hostage here at home, critical resources to secure the border, military aid to Ukraine, and even the Farm Bill. She's lived the American dream while he's been America's nightmare. America, looking at the two choices before you, who would you hire? Donald Trump or Kamala Harris? Kamala Harris has a resume. Donald Trump has a rap sheet. She presides over the Senate while he keeps our national secrets next to his thinking chair. Y'all know what I said that other time. In Mar-a-Lago. While Donald Trump wants to put our 1787 Constitution through his Project 2025 paper shredder and make every day January 6th, Kamala Harris is fighting to fulfill the promise of America. In the real world, this wouldn't even be close. But this election is. Don't make a mistake. We are the underdogs in this fight, even though there is only one person qualified, only one person who's done the work, and who has delivered the results. And she needs you. She needs your one vote this November. Can we count on you? Some of you know a little bit of my history, some of you don't, so let me tell you. I was a public defender. I did criminal defense as well as practiced civil rights law for almost 2 decades. I know a good prosecutor when I see one. Kamala Harris is the kind of prosecutor we long for in the cases like those of Breonna Taylor. Yeah. She was the first attorney general in the nation to order that her officers wear body cams, and she started the Back on Track program to reduce recidivism. Listen, y'all, she did all these things because she genuinely cares about people. She sees each person as just that, a person, not a statistic. She's proven that since the first day she stepped into a courtroom and said what y'all already heard Hillary say, I did not copy out for her speech. I just want y'all to know. She walked into that courtroom and said, Kamala Harris for the people. And she meant that. Many of you know her credentials, but what I love about Kamala Harris goes beyond her resume, is that she sees the humanity in everyone. She's the only candidate in this race who is capable of empathy. When I first got to Congress, I wasn't sure I made the right decision. The Chaos Caucus couldn't elect a speaker, and the Oversight Committee was unhinged. I was going through all of this when I visited the Vice President's residence for the first time. As I approached Vice President Harris for our official photo, She turned to me and asked, "What's wrong?" Mind you, we'd never met, but she saw right through me. She saw the distress. I immediately began crying. And the most powerful woman in the world wiped my tears and listened. It's so hard for me to tell this story. She then said, among other things, "You are exactly where God wants you. Your district chose you because they believe in you, and so do I." Right, I'm gonna stop, okay. The next month, I went viral for the first of many times to come for hitting Republicans with a dose of their own medicine. That brief but impactful interaction gave me my legislative legs, and I've been running ever since. The question before us is, will a vindictive, vile villain violate voters' vision for a better America or not? I hear alliterations are back in style. We deserve better. We deserve a president who can be a bright light in a sea of darkness. One who will pull us forward, because we won't go back. Amanda Gorman said it best: "There's always light if only we are brave enough to see it, if only we are brave enough to be it." Kamala Harris showed me that light. And America, when she is our president, together we will shine as that beacon of hope and freedom around the world once more. God bless y'all.
That was Texas Representative Jasmine Crockett speaking to the crowd here. I want to go spend some time with Kelly O'Donnell right now. Kelly, I don't know what the best seat in the House is, but you may have it, your view there. Show us what you got.
We are above the podium, and so from this vantage point, we've been able to feel what the speakers are feeling, and that has been a rush of different emotions through the night. We've been able to see the signs when they are going up and enforcing what all of the different speakers have been saying, and we're also watching the different generations here with Congresswoman Crockett, part of the younger, very social media savvy members of the Democratic Party, and of course we know this night will build toward President Biden, an elder statesman who will finally embrace that transition candidate that he said at one point he thought he might be, and tonight he does become that. The emotions of this party have been on a wild ride for several months, from the period where we saw that there was real worry and concern in the party, and then this change that's now been embraced. And tonight, part of what we're seeing is the nostalgia of coming back to Hillary Clinton, who was trying to make the case against Donald Trump in a revised and renewed way post-2016. And we've been hearing from some of the friends of President Biden. We also know that behind the scenes, he has been visiting with some of his longest supporters from Delaware who flew in for tonight. He's been meeting privately with some of the leadership of the Democratic National Convention as this party will build toward him. Nostalgia for sure, respect, and a transition to go forward forward by first acknowledging Joe Biden's contributions, his life story, and the decision he made, fateful for him and certainly for his party, to make a change at a time when so many in the country said they wanted to see change and when there is so much at stake. He will talk about defending democracy in 2020 and that it can be done again. He will link his policies to his vice president, and he will make the case that she is the right person to go forward, along with Tim Walz, governor of Minnesota, who we've been watching, enjoying this night. He had made the rounds today to the various caucuses. Also, Douglas Emhoff, of course, husband of Kamala Harris, and his two children have been here. So we've seen a sense of the family. We've seen a sense of the emotion, the energy, and the hopes of the Democratic Party on this first night, when it has been some of its most prominent figures and an emotional send-off that will come tonight for Joe Biden as he embraces this crowd, feels the emotion that we know is building, and tells his story at least one more time before his own party. So, Lester, that's what we're seeing from this room, where you get a sense of how Democrats are coming together, and the emotion they're feeling is pushing toward the pinnacle of tonight, which is President Joe Biden. Lester?
Yeah, Kelly, thanks. You mentioned Tim Walz. Our friend Jacob Soboroff got to get a few questions into the Minnesota governor and vice presidential candidate. Jacob joining us now from the floor. What did he tell you?
Lester, good evening. Governor Walz is sitting on what would basically be the half-court line if this was a Chicago Bulls game. We ventured up to his box to try to chat with him briefly about how he was feeling in advance of President Biden speaking tonight. Take a look at what he had to say.
So I'll continue sharing.
How you feeling, sir?
We're excited. It's a pretty important night for Democrats tonight to honor Joe Biden, and I think Wynn and I, the kids, are excited to be here.
Could you ever imagine a night like this, to be here and to be with the second gentleman, to be with your wife, and to be potentially on the verge of becoming the next vice president of the United States?
I don't know. Doesn't every public school teacher imagine being here? No. It's a privilege. It's an honor, and I can tell you this ticket, feeling that energy, just a privilege.
I'll leave you alone, but you were in Aliquippa, Pennsylvania over the weekend. You feel like you guys are going to take Pennsylvania?
Absolutely. I said the energy out there, and to be with those high school kids, to see what that means, exciting.
Governor, thank you very much. Nice to talk to you. Nice to see you as well.
Lester, you heard Governor Walz there say tonight's a night to honor President Joe Biden, the President of the United States, as he passes the torch to Vice President Kamala Harris and potentially himself, as I asked him, maybe the next Vice President of the United States. It is a personal, it's an intimate moment, and that's just a little bit of a window into what he's experiencing tonight, Lester.
Jacob Soboroff, thanks very much. And right now, the subject of reproductive rights, something that Democrats thought would be a strength even under Joe Biden, and certainly as they continue forward. Hallie, let me get your thoughts on where they're positioning that now as part of the overall theme we're looking at tonight.
Front and center, because it is one of the issues in which Vice President Harris outperforms former President Trump by a quite handy margin. And it's an issue that Democrats think is going to be mobilizing to voters come November. In fact, some recent polling shows that 25% of Americans say this is the most important issue to them, behind the economy and inflation, behind immigration, to be clear, but Democrats see an opportunity here. I want to tell folks what we're seeing on stage. These are some very personal stories from everyday Americans as the campaign, as the Democrats have framed it here, about pregnancies, about what abortion access means to them, and about how important the issue of reproductive rights is. What's so part of what is at play here at the new dynamic now with the Harris-Walz campaign as opposed to the Biden-Harris campaign is the way that I think there is a sense that both Vice President Harris and Governor Walz can be messengers on this issue in a way that President Biden chose not to. You look at, for example, you just saw Jacob talking with Governor Walz, his wife sitting next to him. She just today is sharing very intimate and personal details about her infertility journey and what she and Governor Walz went through in trying to get pregnant, an issue that may have real resonance with voters who have struggled with the same kind of thing.
And Kristen, this is a subject that former President Trump usually responds to, saying it's a state's issue. Let the states handle it. In fact, it's going to be on the ballot. in November in several places.
It's going to be on the ballot right now in 8 different states, potentially 3 others. You're absolutely right. Former President Donald Trump, of course, appointed the 3 conservative Supreme Court justices who made it possible to overturn Roe v. Wade. So he's walking this fascinating, delicate, fine line of trying to say, look, it's a states' rights issue now, but at the same time, really trying to pivot and saying, I don't think the issue of abortion is going to be a big deal in this election. The reality is, Hallie lays out the poll numbers, seems to be quite different, particularly, Lester, if you go back to the midterms, if you go back to some of the special elections that we have covered time and time again, it has been energizing, and the results show that reproductive rights has been energizing for Democratic voters, and that is what Democrats are banking on in this election as well. Vice President Kamala Harris has been the really lead messenger, if you think about it, in the Biden administration on this topic. She's traveled from state to state where reproductive rights are being threatened. And she's making the case that if she were to be elected, she would enshrine it federally. Now, of course, that's incredibly difficult. There just aren't the votes in Congress for that right now. You heard Congresswoman
And that's exactly what they're talking about right now. Tom Yamas is actually on the floor right now. Tom, we're hearing the mood of the crowd change as the subject is fully explored. And they're beginning to hear some of these stories. I say beginning. They've heard many of them before. Give us a read on the crowd there, Tom.
Yeah, Lester, it's incredibly full right now, as you can imagine. It's more than, I'd say, standing room only. As you can see, we try to walk around here. It's incredibly hard to navigate. People are sort of listening to this speech as Governor of Kentucky, Andy Beshear, is about to take the stage. But you can see basically how many people are here, standing room only. A lot of people looking forward to this speech from the Kentucky governor. No, it's all right. It's all right.
Waiting to hear from Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear. He is taking the stage next. Popular 2-term Democratic governor in a red state, also named as a possible VP choice. And he is now going to speak. The crowd yelling Andy.
I'm amazed at the courage it takes to share her pain, to share her truth. Yet Donald Trump brags about tearing a constitutional right away from Hadley and every other woman and girl in our country. That's why we must tear away any chance he can ever be president ever again. In 21 states, Trump's actions have resulted in extreme bans on abortion in my state, even in cases of rape, incest, and non-viable pregnancies. That leaves 12-year-old girls like Hadley with no options. That fails any test of humanity, any test of basic decency, any test of whether you have any underlying empathy. Thankfully, this extremism is being soundly rejected all over our country. In Kentucky, we put reproductive freedom on the ballot last November, and I beat Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell's hand-picked candidate by more than 5 percentage points. This November, we're going to beat them again. Elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz and protect reproductive freedom. Folks, Donald Trump appointed the Supreme Court justices who got us into this mess. His Project 2025 goes even further. Here's the thing. Trump and Vance simply don't believe in your freedom. Trump says people are absolutely thrilled that women had their basic rights eliminated. J.D. Vance says women should stay in violent marriages and that pregnancies resulting from rape are simply inconvenient. Their policies give rapists more rights than their victims. That's not inconvenient, it's just plain wrong. And a woman grieving a non-viable pregnancy shouldn't be required to carry it to term just to listen to her child die or to hear no sound at all. All women should have the freedom to make their own decisions. Freedom over their own bodies. Freedom about whether to pursue IVF. Freedom about whether to have children at all. How we treat people transcends party lines. It goes right to the heart of who we are. My faith teaches me the golden rule that I am to love my neighbor as myself. And the parable of the Good Samaritan says we are all each other's neighbors. So I want anyone watching tonight, Republican, Independent, Democrat, to know that you are welcome here. We believe in an America where we live out our values, end anger politics once and for all, and move beyond this us versus them by remembering we are all Americans. That's how Joe Biden and Kamala Harris lead. They both called to ask how they could help Kentucky in recovering from natural disasters. They helped us improve our roads, our bridges, and invested in our people. They didn't ask me who Kentuckians voted for. They asked me what Kentuckians needed, and folks, they delivered. Kamala Harris gets it. She knows we must move beyond anger, extremism, and division, that everyone has dignity and deserves respect. America, we're going to win. And we're going to win by staying true to our values of compassion, empathy, and doing right by our neighbors. I'm so proud to be all in for the next President of the United States, Kamala Harris. Thank you.
You came in shortly before his remarks and now there to hear from the president shortly. But right now, Dr. Democratic Georgia Senator Raphael Warnock being brought to the stage.
Well, hello, America. Thank you so very much. On January 5th, 2021, the people of Georgia did an amazing thing. They sent a black kid who grew up in public housing and the Jewish son of an immigrant to the United States Senate in one fell swoop. And among those Georgians was my then 82-year-old mother. She grew up in Waycross, Georgia. Do you know where that is? It's Waycross, Georgia. She grew up in Waycross, Georgia, where she picked other people's cotton and other people's tobacco But because this is America, the 82-year-old hands that used to pick somebody else's cotton and somebody else's tobacco picked her youngest son to be a United States Senator. This is my America. Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Georgia. Thank you, America, for raising your voice and using your vote. A vote is a kind of prayer for the world we desire for ourselves and for our children, and our prayers are stronger when we pray together. And so together we flipped the Senate, held the House, and we sent Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to the White House. Together we vaccinated our citizens, we fortified our cities and our towns, and we stood by our small businesses. Together we set out to heal the land. A nation besieged by a deadly pandemic and beset by the awful and divisive rhetoric of a man too small for the office entrusted him or the task set before him. The day after my January 5th election, he instigated an insurrection, a violent assault on our nation's capital and the peaceful transfer of power, all driven by the big lie. But behind the big lie was an even bigger lie. It is the lie that this increasingly diverse American electorate does not get to determine the future of the country. The lie and the logic of January 6th is a sickness. It is a kind of cancer that then metastasized into dozens of voter suppression laws all across our country. And we must be vigilant tonight because these anti-democratic forces are at work right now in Georgia and all across our country. And the question is, who will heal the land? And so here we are, America. Are you ready? Are you ready to stand up in this moral moment? And stand up for the best in the American covenant. Elections are about the character of a country. And we must decide, again, we are the latest generation of Americans who get to decide what kind of country we want to be. And we must choose between the promise of January 5th and the peril of January 6th. A nation that embraces all of us or just some of us. Donald Trump's America is the America of January 6th. People who have no vision traffic in division. He does not know how to lead us, and so he wants to divide us. America, make no mistake, Donald Trump is a plague on the American conscience. He is a clear and present threat to the precious covenant we share with one another. And yes, I saw him holding the Bible and endorsing a Bible as if it needed his endorsement. He should try reading it. It says, do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with your God. He should try reading it. It says, love your neighbor as yourself. It says, inasmuch as you've done it unto the least of these, you have done it also unto me. I choose the American covenant. E pluribus unum, out of many one. I choose January 5th. I choose a nation that provides a path for ordinary people and gives every child a chance. And that's Joe Biden's America. And he's been fighting for it for more than a half century. President Biden, America is so much better because of you, a true patriot who has always put the people first. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe. But I'll tell you something else. Not only is that Joe Biden's America, that's Kamala Harris's America. She was leading with Joe Biden when we expanded the child tax credit, cutting child poverty in America nearly in half. We ought to renew it. She cast a tie-breaking vote for my bill capping the cost of insulin to no more than $35 per month for seniors. We ought to extend it to everybody. Together we passed an infrastructure bill, bolstered American manufacturing and clean energy, an investment in the house that we all share together. And I've got news for you, we are just getting started. Are you ready to win this election? Kamala Harris and Tim Walz represent the new way forward. We're not going back. We're not going back because we are the United States of America. We always dream about the future. And so forward on women's reproductive rights, because we believe that a patient's room is too small and cramped a space for a woman, her doctor, and the United States government. That's too many people in the room. Forward on worker rights, because most people do not mind working. They just want to share in the prosperity that they are creating for others. Forward on voting rights, forward on affordable housing and access to health care. We are moving forward. And so I'm inspired tonight. I'm inspired by all of you. I'm inspired by the resilience of an American spirit that has rebounded from the pandemic and is holding at bay the forces that are trying to divide us. And I'm inspired tonight by the memory of my late father, a preacher and a junk man. Monday through Friday, he lifted old broken cars and put them on the back of an old rig. But on Sunday morning, the man who lifted broken cars lifted broken people whom other people had discarded and told them that they were God's somebody. My dad discovered strength in the broken places, a power made perfect in weakness. And so I'm convinced tonight that we can lift the broken even as we climb. I'm convinced tonight that we can heal sick bodies. We can heal the wounds that divide us. We can heal a planet in peril. We can heal the land. And in a strange way, the pandemic taught us how. A contagious airborne disease means that I have a personal stake in the health of my neighbor. If she's sick, I may get sick also. Her health care is good for my health. I'm just trying to tell you that we are as close in our humanity as a cough. I need my neighbor's children to be okay so that my children will be okay. I need all of my neighbor's children to be okay. Poor inner city children in Atlanta and poor children of Appalachia. I need the poor children of Israel and the poor children of Gaza. I need Israelis and Palestinians. I need those in the Congo, those in Haiti, those in Ukraine. I need American children on both sides of the track to be okay. Because we are all God's children. And so let's stand together. Let's work together. Let's organize together. Let's pray together. Let's stand together. Let's heal the land. God bless you. Keep the faith and keep looking up.
Georgia Senator Raphael Warnock stirring this crowd to its feet, speaking praise for Kamala Harris, but also for President Biden. We'll be hearing from shortly. This is in many ways his night. We're going to hear from the First Lady, Dr. Joe Biden, first, and then the President would follow. But next, we'll hear one of the oldest friends of the President, Delaware Senator Chris Coons.
Good evening, Chicago. Are there any Democrats in the room tonight? Folks, we are on the verge of making history. We are on the verge of an historic election. And I want to talk with you for just a few minutes about my dear friend, our President, Joe Biden. Joe Biden's mom had a saying: "You are defined by your courage, and you are redeemed by your loyalty." 4 years ago, I had the honor of helping introduce Joe Biden to our national convention. I spoke about Joe's faith, his love of family, his determination to restore the soul of our nation. Back in 2020, America was nearly flat on our back from a deadly pandemic, an economic collapse, and then in January, an assault on our democracy. All of this, because the drama and chaos of our former president had knocked us down. But folks, Joe Biden's courage, Joe Biden's faith in us, Joe Biden's determination to heal the soul of our nation gave us hope and gave us confidence. Someone who has himself been knocked down by life time and again. Joe Biden knows the grit and determination of the American people. He believed in us, and Joe Biden helped us get back up again. Using the incredible skills he'd developed in many years in the U.S. Senate, Joe got passed and signed into law the most consequential legislation of any president in 60 years, helping our veterans, advancing gun safety, cutting prescription drug prices, fighting climate change, rebuilding bridges and broadband, bringing manufacturing back to America. Together, Joe and Kamala help rebuild our economy from the middle up, from the bottom up, and the middle out, not from the top down. And they made our families safer and our country stronger at home and abroad. Today, we are so much better off because they believed in us, in our democracy. And our incredible First Lady, Jill Biden, our incredible First Lady, Jill Biden, our incredible First Lady, Jill Biden, was at Joe's side every step of the way, fighting for education, advancing the cancer moonshot, determined to improve women's health care, honoring military families. Joe and Jill, together, you have done so much for us, and there's so much more you will do and we can do together. Mr. President, thank you. Thank you for elevating a great leader in Kamala Harris. Vice President Harris, thank you for choosing a great running mate with a heart for the middle class like yours in Sergeant, Congressman, Coach, Governor Tim Walz. I have hope. Do you? I have hope. Do you? I have hope. Do you? And it is in no small part because of Joe Biden. I have never known a more compassionate man than Joe Biden. I have never known a man who has taken from his own loss and his own faith and delivered so much for the future of so many others. Mr. President, you were my senator as a Delawarean. You are my president as an American, and you will always be my friend. On behalf of our nation, Joe, for your courage in fighting for our democracy, we thank you. On behalf of our Democratic Party, for your loyalty in fighting for our democratic values, we thank you. And on behalf of Delaware, thank you, Joe, and God bless you. We love you. We love Joe. 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 Thank you all. We love Joe. God bless you, and thank you very much.
Tonight's session, somewhat of a love letter to Joe Biden, who we'll hear from shortly. The First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden, is about to take the stage first. She will honor her husband, President Biden. We will also expect to hear from their daughter, Ashley, all part of tonight's tribute to him in Chicago.
Great student, Kristen McCall. I've been bouncing around all week excited for this moment, and last night I could barely sleep. I remember the day that we heard that President Biden had won, and the whole neighborhood started. And
I'm joined again by Kristen and Hallie. It is hard to believe that just a few weeks ago, the Democratic Party was searching for its soul. It was overrun by despondent, worried attitudes about where this party was going.
When we were all gathered to cover the Republican National Convention, we continued to remark on how unified Republicans felt, and the big question was, would Democrats be unified? How could they be, given their concerns about President Biden? Now what we are seeing is a party that is unified around this new ticket, around Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. And I think the question is, are they just energized by the prospect of winning, or are they also energized by Kamala Harris? We'll know more at the end of this week.
And of course, the woman we're about to hear from, the First Lady, in the innermost circle in that decision-making process, Lester, as President Biden decided to withdraw from that race.
And here is Dr. Joe Biden.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Love you too. Joe and I have been together for almost 50 years. And still, there are moments when I fall in love with him all over again. Like when I handed him our baby Ashley for the first time and saw the smile that lit up his face. Or on nights after an exhausting day working in the Senate, when he would read one more bedtime story just because the kids asked. When he stops on a rope line because he sees someone grieving who needs to know that everything is going to be all right one day. Or to encourage that child with a stutter to find the confidence she needs. Those moments when I'm reminded of all he's accomplished in the name of something bigger than himself. Receiving the Medal of Freedom with humility. Placing his hand on our family Bible to take his oath of office. And weeks ago, when I saw him dig deep into his soul and decide to no longer seek re-election and endorse Kamala Harris. With faith and conviction, Joe knows that our nation's strength doesn't come from intimidation or cruelty. It comes from the small acts of kindness that heal deep wounds, from service to the communities that make us who we are, from love of a country that shines with promise and renewal. Kamala Harris knows that too. Our son, Beau, first worked with Kamala when he was Attorney General of Delaware. He told me at the dinner table one night, "Mom, she's special, someone to keep your eye on." And he was right. Joe and I know Kamala. We have seen her courage, her determination, and her leadership up close. Kamala and Tim, you will win. And you are inspiring a new generation. We are all a part of something bigger than ourselves, and we are stronger than we know. The future of our country is in the hands of those in this room and all of you watching at home. It's going to take all of us, and we can't afford to lose. With faith in each other, hope for a brighter future, and love for our country, we will fight and we will win together. honor. Thank you. Thank you.
Much of the crowd holding Jill signs. Up next from the DNC, we're going to hear from President Biden's daughter, Ashley. She's the president's youngest child.
Good evening. I have this memory. It's the eve of my 8th birthday. Dad is still in D.C., tending to urgent matters in the Senate. That night, as a surprise, Mom told me, Bo, and Hunter to get in the car. I remember pulling up to the Wilmington Amtrak station, riding up the escalator to the platform. The train stops, doors open, and Dad steps out. As soon as I saw him, I run down that platform and jump into his arms. Like magic, Mom brought out a cake, they sang happy birthday, and I blew out the candles. Dad hugged me, and he said that he had to get back to work. He crossed to the southbound train, and off he went to D.C. That was a snapshot of one moment, of one day, on this extraordinary journey of being Joe Biden's daughter. Joe Biden is the OG girl dad. He told me I could be anything and I could do anything. As a child, I would sit on the leather chair in his office doing my homework, and he would sit next to me doing his work, drafting the Violence Against Women Act. And he wasn't just a girl dad. And he wasn't just a girl dad. I could see that he valued and trusted women. How he listened to his mother, how he believed in his sister, and most of all, how he respected my mother's career. Dad was always there, doing everything he could to be a true partner to her. Dad, you always tell us, but we don't tell you enough, that you are the love of our lives and the life of our love. I had my wedding reception in my parents' backyard. At the time, my dad was vice president. But he was also that dad who literally set up the entire reception. He was riding around in his John Deere four-wheeler, fixing the place settings, arranging the plants, and by the way, he was very emotional. I thought that I would be a mess, but he was the one crying, and I was the one who had to comfort him. Before he walked me down the aisle, he turned to me and said that he would always be my best friend. All these years later, Dad, you are still my best friend. His example in service inspired my career. I'm a social worker in Philadelphia. I support formerly incarcerated women as they heal from past trauma and they reclaim their lives. Dad always told me that I was no better than anybody else and nobody was better than me. He taught me that everyone deserves a fair shot and that we shouldn't leave anyone behind. That's what you learn from a fighter who has been underestimated his entire life. When I look at Dad, I see grace, strength, and humility. I see one of the most consequential leaders ever in history. And I also know that he never stops thinking about you, about your dreams, about your dignity, about your opportunities, about your family. Dad knows that family is everything. When Hunter and I lost our brother Beau to cancer in 2015, the grief and the pain felt like it might never end. Dad had the capacity to step out of his own pain and absorb ours. And I know that Beau is here with us tonight, as he is always with us. After Beau passed, I got this tattoo on my wrist. It says, "Courage, dear heart." A reminder to myself to keep going, to get back up, like my dad has always done. He has taught me that a courageous heart is a miraculous thing. A courageous heart can heal a family. A courageous heart can heal a nation, and maybe even the world. And now, this election requires the courageous hearts of all of us. In 2020, my dad selected Kamala Harris to beat Donald Trump. And he knows in 2024, she will beat Donald Trump again. So tonight, I am asking you, if you stood with us in 2020, call upon your courageous heart. Stand with us today. Work harder than you have ever worked before in your life. This is the fight of our lifetime. Our freedom, our democracy, our reproductive rights. All of this, all of it is on the ballot. And I know together we can do this because my dad helped show us the way. And now, I would like to introduce my father, your 46th President of the United States, Joe Biden.
Emotional moment between father and daughter as the time approaches for tonight's keynote address from President Biden. A remarkable scene here in Chicago in a convention hall that was supposed to be his big stage. Instead, Kamala Harris, destined to be the party's nominee, but not before this love letter, this adoration toward President Biden is sent from this crowd.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
being felt by President Biden now as he sees this crowd.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I love you. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That was my daughter. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for so. I tell you what. To my dearest daughter, Ashley, God love you, you're incredible. Thank you for the introduction and for being my courageous heart, along with Hunter and our entire family, and especially our rock, Jill. Who, as those of you who know us, she still leaves me both breathless and speechless. Everybody knows her. I love her more than she loves me. She walks down the stairs, and I still get that going, boom, boom, boom. Y'all will know me. No, I'm not kidding. Let's give a special round of applause to our First Lady, Jill Biden. My dad used to have an expression, for real. He'd say, Joey, family is the beginning, the middle, and the end. And I love you all. Folks. And America, I love you. Folks, let me ask you. Let me ask you, are you ready to vote for freedom? Are you ready to vote for democracy and for America? Let me ask you, are you ready to elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, President and Vice President of the United States? My fellow Democrats, my fellow Americans, nearly 4 years ago, in winter, on the steps of the Capitol, on a cold January day, I raised my right hand and I swore an oath to you and to God to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and to faithfully execute the office of the President of the United States. In front of me was a city surrounded by the National Guard. Behind me, a Capitol that just 2 weeks before had been overrun by a violent mob. But I knew then, from the bottom of my heart, that I knew now, there is no place in America for political violence. None. You cannot say you love your country only when you win. In that moment, I wasn't looking to the past. I was looking to the future. I spoke of the work at hand, the moment we had to meet. It was, as I told you then, a winter of peril and possibility. Of peril and possibility. We're in the grip of a once-in-a-century pandemic, historic joblessness, a call for racial justice long overdue, clear and present threats to our very democracy. Thank you. And yet I believed then, and I believe now, that progress was and is possible. Justice is achievable. And our best days are not behind us, they're before us. Now it's summer. The winter has passed. And with a grateful heart, I stand before you now on this August night to report that democracy has prevailed. Democracy has delivered. And now democracy must be preserved. You've heard me say it before. We're facing an inflection point. One of those rare moments in history when the decisions we make now will determine the fate of our nation and the world for decades to come. That's not hyperbole, I mean it literally. We're in a battle for the very soul of America. I ran for president in 2020 because of what I saw in Charlottesville in August of 2017. Extremists coming out of the woods, carrying torches, their veins bulging from their necks, carrying Nazi swastikas, and chanting the same exact anti-Semitic bile that was heard in Germany in the early 30s. Neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and the Ku Klux Klan, so emboldened by a president then in the White House that they saw as an ally. They didn't even bother to wear their hoods. Hate was on the march in America. Old ghosts in new garments, stirring up the oldest divisions, stoking the oldest fears, giving oxygen to the oldest forces that they long sought to tear apart America. In the process, a young woman was killed. When I contacted her mother, I asked about what happened. She told me. When the president was asked what he thought had happened, Donald Trump said, and I quote, There are very fine people on both sides. My God. That's what he said. That is what he said and what he meant. That's when I realized, had listened to the admonition of my dead son, I could not stay on the sidelines. So I ran. Because I had no intention of running again. I just lost part of my soul. But I ran with a deep conviction. In America, I know and believe in an America where honesty, dignity, decency still matter. An America where everyone has a fair shot and hate has no safe harbor. An America where the fundamental creed of this nation, that all of us are created equal, is still very much alive. And a broad coalition of Americans joined with me. 81 million voters voted for us, more than any time in all of history. Because of all of you in this room and others, we came together in 2020 to save democracy. As your president, I've been determined to keep America moving forward, not going back, to stand against hate and violence in all its forms, to be a nation where we not only live with but thrive on diversity, demonizing no one, leaving no one behind, and becoming the nation that we profess to be. I also ran to rebuild the backbone of America, the middle class. I made a commitment to you that I be a president for all Americans, whether you voted for me or not. We have done that. Studies show the major bills we have passed actually delivered more to red states than blue, because the job of the president is to deliver to all of America. And because of you, and I'm not exaggerating, because of you, we've had one of the most extraordinary 4 years of progress ever, period. When I say we, I mean Kamala and me. Just think about it. COVID no longer controls our lives. We've gone from economic crisis to the strongest economy in the entire world. Record 16 million new jobs. Record small business growth. Record high stock market. Record high 401ks. Wages up and inflation down, way down, and continuing to go down. The smallest racial wealth gap in 20 years. And yes, we both know we have more to do, but we're moving in the right direction. More Americans have peace of mind that comes from having health insurance. More Americans have health insurance today than ever before in American history. And after, as a young senator beginning to fight for 50 years to give Medicare the power to negotiate lower prescription drug prices, we finally beat Big Pharma. And guess who cast the tie-breaking vote? Vice President, soon-to-be President Kamala Harris. And now it's the law of the land. Instead of paying $400 a month for insulin, seniors with diabetes will pay $35 a month. The law we passed already includes, starting in January, every senior's total prescription costs can be capped at $2,000 no matter how expensive the drugs they have. And what we don't focus on, and our Republican friends don't seem to understand, our reforms don't just save seniors money, they save the American taxpayers money. You know what we just passed saves? It saved $160 billion over the next decade. That's not hyperbole. It's because Medicare no longer has to pay those exorbitant prices to the big pharma. But look, well, thank you, Kamala, too. Look, folks, how can we have the strongest economy in the world without the best infrastructure in the world? Donald Trump promised Infrastructure Week every week for 4 years, and he never built a damn thing. But now, because of what Kamala and I have done, remember we were told we couldn't get it done. Remember when we came into office, we couldn't get anything passed? But right now, we're giving America an infrastructure decade, not week. We're modernizing our roads, our bridges, our ports, our airports, our trains, our buses. We're removing every lead pipe from schools and homes so every child can drink clean water. We're providing affordable high-speed internet for every American, no matter where they live, not unlike what Roosevelt did with electricity. And so much more. We are uniting the country. We're growing our economy. We're improving our quality of life. And we're building a better America. Because that's who we are. How can we be the strongest nation in the world without leading the world in science and technology? After years of importing 90% of our semiconductor chips from abroad, which America invented those chips, our Chips and Science Act meant that private companies from around the world are now investing literally tens of billions of dollars to build new chip factories right here in America. And over that period, they'll create tens of thousands of jobs. And many of those jobs in the so-called fabs, the buildings that make the chips, that's being constructed now. And guess what? The average salary in those fabs, size of a football field, will be over $100,000 a year, and you don't need a college degree. Because of you and so many electeds out there, American manufacturing is back. Where the hell to say we wouldn't lead the world in manufacturing? 800,000 new manufacturing jobs. Our Republican friends and others made sure they'd go abroad to get the cheapest labor. We used to import products and export jobs. Now we export American products and create American jobs right here in America, where jobs belong. With every new job, with every new factory, pride and hope is being brought back to communities throughout the country that were left behind. You know you're from them, many of you. You know what it's like when that factory closed, where your mother, your father, your grandmother, grandfather worked. And now you're back, providing once again, proving that Wall Street didn't build America, the middle class built America, and unions built the middle class. It's been my view since I came to the Senate. That's why I'm proud to have been the first president to walk a picket line and be labeled the most pro-union president in history, and I accept it. It's a fact. Because when unions do well, we all do well. You got it, man. You got it. I agree. I'm proud. Look, remember he told we couldn't get anything done because we couldn't get anything done in the Congress? Well, with your support, we passed the most significant climate law in the history of mankind. Over $370 billion. Cutting carbon emissions in half by 2030. Launching a climate corps, similar to AmeriCorps and Peace Corps, creating tens of thousands of jobs for young people of the future who are going to make sure this continues. Creating hundreds of thousands of jobs in clean energy for American workers, including the IBEW installing 500,000 charging stations all across America. And in the process, reducing carbon emissions. And we're seeing it. We're seeing to it that the first beneficiaries of environmental initiatives are those fence-line communities that have been smothered by the legacy of pollution. Louisiana and Delaware, Route 9, all the factories, all those chemical factories are right next to the poorest neighborhoods. They're the ones we're going to bring back. And how? How can we be the greatest nation in the world without the best education system in the world? Donald Trump and the Republican friends, they not only can't think, they can't read very well. Seriously, think about it. Look at their Project 2025. They want to do away with the Department of Education. Well, during the pandemic, Kamala and I helped states and cities get back their schools back open. And we gave public school teachers a raise. We created apprenticeships with businesses and communities, putting students on a path to a good paying job, whether or not they go to college. And by the way, we're making college a hell of a lot more affordable. Increasing Pell Grants by $900. Over $15 billion for HBCUs. Minority service engines, including Hispanic institutions and tribal colleges. We kept our commitment to provide more student relief than ever by lifting the burden of helping millions of families so they could get married, start a family, buy a home, and begin to build family wealth and contribute to the community and grow our economy. It's not costing us, it's creating more wealth. We fundamentally transformed how our economy grows, from the middle out and the bottom up instead of the top down. You know, my dad used to say there wasn't a whole hell of a lot to drop down on my kitchen table at the end of the month. I come from a basic middle-class family, 3-bedroom house, 4 kids, a grandpop living with us, decent neighborhood, but never a penny to spare. And look, that top-down notion never worked. A lot of Democrats didn't think it worked, thought it worked, but it doesn't. And when we did all that, what we've done, everybody can do well. Everybody. Donald Trump calls America a failing nation. No, I'm serious. But think about this. Think about this. He publicly says to the whole world, I'm going to say something outrageous. I know more foreign leaders by their first names and know them well than anybody alive. Just because I'm so damn old. But I'm not joking. Think of the message he sends around the world when he talks about America being a failing nation. He says we're losing. He's the loser. He's dead wrong. Many of you are very successful people who travel the world. Name me a country in the world that doesn't think we're the leading nation in the world. Without America, not a joke, think about it. I'm being literal. Who could lead the world other than the United States of America? Well, guess what? America's winning, and the world's better off for it. America's more prosperous, and Americans are safer today than under Donald Trump. Trump continues to lie about crime in America, like everything else. Guess what? On his watch, the murder rate went up 30%, the biggest increase in history. Meanwhile, we made the largest investment, Kamala and I, in public safety ever. Now, the murder rate is falling faster than any time in history. Violent crime has dropped to the lowest level of more than 50 years. And crime will keep coming down when we put a prosecutor in the Oval Office instead of a convicted felon. And folks, the distinguished senator from the Senator from California and I passed the first ban on assault weapons. And guess what? It worked. If we care about public safety, we need to prevent gun violence. And what makes me ashamed when I travel the world, which I do, more children in America are killed by a gunshot than any other cause in the United States. More die from a bullet than cancer, accidents, or anything else in the United States of America. My God. That's why Kamala and I are proud. We beat the NRA when we passed the first major bipartisan gun safety law in 30 years. I'm serious. That comes from here. And now it's time to ban assault weapons again. And demand universal background checks. It's hard. I never thought I'd stand before a crowd of Democrats and refer to a president as a liar so many times. No, I'm not trying to be funny. It's sad. Trump continues to lie about the border. Here's what he won't tell you. Trump killed the strongest bipartisan border deal in the history of the United States that we negotiated with the Senate Republicans. It took 4 weeks. Once it passed, and never acknowledged the most expansive border change in American history. He called senators to say, don't support the bipartisan bill, because he said it would help me politically and hurt him politically. My God. No, I'm serious. Think about it. Not a joke. Ask even the press who doesn't like me. They'll tell you that's true. Typically, Trump, once again, putting himself first and America last. Then I had to take executive action. The result of the executive action I took, border encounters have dropped over 50%. In fact, there are fewer border crossings today than when Donald Trump left office. And unlike Trump, we will not demonize immigrants, saying they're the poison of blood of America. Poison the blood of our country. Kamala and I are committed to strengthening legal immigration, including protecting dreamers and more. And here's what else I believe in: protecting your freedom to vote, your freedom to love who you love, and your freedom to choose. In its decision overturning Roe v. Wade, as you heard earlier tonight, the United States Supreme Court majority wrote the following, quote, "Women are not without electoral or political power." No kidding. MAGA Republicans found out the power of women in 2022. And Donald Trump is going to find out the power of women in 2024. Watch. And where Trump and his mega Republican right-wingers seek to erase history, we Democrats continue to write history and make more history. I'm proud to have kept my commitment to appoint the first black woman to the United States Supreme Court. Ketanji Brown Jackson, a symbol for every young woman in America that you can do anything. I'm proud that I've kept my commitment to have an administration that looks like America and that taps in to the full talent of our nation. The most diverse cabinet in history, including the first black woman of South Asian descent to serve as vice president, and will soon serve as the 47th president of the United States. She is good. Look. Thank you, Kamala. Folks, I've long said we have many obligations as a nation, but I got in trouble years ago for saying I'd make no apologies. We have only one truly sacred obligation: to prepare and equip those we send to war and care for them and their families when they come home and when they don't. That's why I'm so proud to have written and signed the PACT Act, one of the most significant laws ever, helping veterans and their families exposed to toxic materials like burn pits in Agent Orange. I was around during the Vietnam War. It's hard. Nobody was able to prove that their illness was a consequence of Agent Orange. And no one was able to prove initially that because they lived in burn pits like my son lived next to in Iraq for a year, that is the cause of their illness. But because of the PACT Act, a surviving spouse with 2 children is now eligible for a stipend of about $3,000 a month. And those children who lost a parent are eligible for tuition benefits to go to college and to get job training. It's already helping over 1 million veterans and their families just so far. Well, I love them, and I'm so proud of my son's service. We get it. But guess who doesn't get it and doesn't respect our veterans? We know from his own chief of staff, the 4-star General John Kelly, that Trump, when in Europe, would not go to the grave sites in France. The brave service members who gave their lives to this country, he called them suckers and losers. Who in the hell does he think he is? Who does he think he is? There's no words for a person. They are not the words of a person not worthy of being commander-in-chief, period. Not then, not now, and not ever. I mean that. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Just as no commander-in-chief should ever bow down to a dictator, the way Trump bows down to Putin. I never have, and I promise you, Kamala Harris will never do it. Will never bow down. When Trump left office, Europe and NATO was in tatters. Not a joke. America First doctrine changed our whole image in the world. Well, they gave the hours, about 190 hours, sum total, even my counterparts or heads of state in Europe, to strengthen NATO. We did. We united Europe like it hadn't been united for years, adding Finland and Sweden to NATO. 10 days before he died, Henry Kissinger called and said, not since Napoleon has Europe not looked over their shoulder at Russia with dread, until now. Until now. Well, guess what? Putin thought he'd take Kyiv in 3 days. 3 years later, Ukraine is still free. When I came to office, the conventional wisdom was that China would inevitably surpass the United States. They haven't noticed. No one's saying that now. And we'll keep working to bring hostages home and end the war in Gaza and bring peace and security to the Middle East. As you know, I wrote a peace treaty for Gaza. A few days ago, I put forward a proposal that brought us closer to doing that than we've done since October 7th. We're working around the clock, my Secretary of State, to prevent a wider war and reunite hostages with their families and surge humanitarian health and food assistance into Gaza now. To end the civilian suffering of the Palestinian people, and finally deliver a ceasefire and end this war. Those protesters out in the street, they have a point. A lot of innocent people are being killed on both sides. Just as we worked around the clock to bring home wrongfully detained Americans and others from Russia in one of the most complicated swaps in history, but they're home. Kamala and I are going to keep working to bring all Americans wrongfully detained around the world home. I mean it. Folks, I've got 5 months left in my presidency. I've got a lot to do. I intend to get it done. It's been the honor of my lifetime to serve as your president. I love the job, but I love my country more. I love my country more. And all this talk about how I'm angry at all those people who said I should step down, that's not true. Thank you. I love my country more, and we need to preserve our democracy. In 2024, we need you to vote. We need you to keep the Senate. We need you to win back the House of Representatives. And above all, we need you to beat Donald Trump. And elect Kamala and Tim President and Vice President of the United States of America. Look, they'll continue to lead America forward, creating more jobs, standing up for workers, growing the economy, lower the cost to American families so they just have a little more breathing room. We've made incredible progress, but we have more work to do. And Kamala and Tim will continue to take on corporate greed and bring down cost of food. They'll keep taking on Big Pharma, making insulin $35 a month, not just for seniors, but for everyone in America. And capping prescription drug costs at a total of $2,000, not just for seniors, but for everyone. And folks, that's going to save America again tens of billions of dollars. Folks, they'll make housing more affordable, building 3 million new homes, providing $25,000 down payment assistance for the first-time home buyer, more than the 10 we approved. Donald Trump wants a new tax on imported goods, food, gas, clothing, and more. You know what that will cost the average family, according to the experts? $3,900 a year in a tax. No, that's a fact. Kamala and Tim will make the child care tax credit permanent. Lifting millions of children out of poverty and helping millions of families get ahead. But you know what Trump has? He created the largest debt any president had in 4 years with his $2 trillion tax cut for the wealthy. Well, Trump has a new plan. He wants to provide a $5 billion tax cut for corporations and the very wealthy. Read it. Put us further in debt. And folks, you know we have 1,000 billionaires in America. You know what their average tax rate they pay? 8.2%. If we just increase their taxes, we proposed to 25%, which isn't the highest tax rate even, it would raise $500 billion new dollars over 10 years. They'd still be very wealthy. Look, Kamala and Tim are going to make them pay their fair share. They'll protect Social Security and Medicare. Trump wants to cut Social Security and Medicare. Kamala and Tim will protect your freedom. They'll protect your your right to vote. They'll protect your civil rights. And you know Trump will do everything to ban abortion nationwide. Oh, he will. You know, Kamala and Tim will do everything they possibly can. That's why you have to elect the Senate and House to restore Roe v. Wade. The ancient Greeks taught us that character is destiny. Character is destiny. For me and Jill, we know Kamala and Doug are people of character. It's been our honor to serve alongside them. And we know that Tim and Gwen Walz are also people of great character. Selecting Kamala was the very first decision I made when I became our nominee. And it was the best decision I made my whole career. We've not only gotten to know each other, we've become close friends. She's tough, she's experienced, and she has enormous integrity, enormous integrity. Her story represents the best American story. And like many of our best presidents, she was also vice president. That's a joke. But she'll be a president our children can look up to. She'll be a president respected by world leaders because she already is. She'll be a president we can all be proud of. And she will be an historic president who puts her stamp on America's future. This will be the first presidential election since January 6th. On that day, we almost lost everything about who we are as a country. And that threat, this is not hyperbole, that threat is still very much alive. Donald Trump says he will refuse to accept the election result if he loses again. Think about that. He means it. Think about that. He's promising a bloodbath if he loses, in his words. And that he'll be a dictator on day one, in his own words. By the way, this sucker means it. No, I'm not joking. Think about it. Anybody else said that in the past, you'd think he was crazy. He is crazy, but you'd think it was an exaggeration, but he means it. We can't let that happen. Folks, all of us carry a special obligation. Independents, Republicans, Democrats. We saved democracy in 2020, and now we must save it again in 2024. The vote of each of us cast this year will determine whether democracy and freedom will prevail. It's that simple. It's that serious. And the power is literally in your hands. History is in your hands. Not hyperbole. It's in your hands. America's future is in your hands. Let me close with this. Nowhere else in the world could a kid with a stutter and modest beginnings in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and Claymont, Delaware, grow up to sit behind the resolute desk in the Oval Office. That's because America is and always has been a nation of possibilities. Possibilities. We must never lose that. Never. Kamala and Tim understand that this nation must continue to be a place of possibilities, not just for the few of us, but for all of us. But join me in promising your whole heart to this effort, and where my heart will be. I promise I'll be the best volunteer Harris and Walz has Cam ever seen. Each of us has a part in the American story. For me and my family, there's a song that means a lot to us. It captures the best of who we are as a nation. The song is called American Anthem. There's one verse that stands out, and I can't sing worth a damn, so I'm not going to try. I'll just quote it. The work and prayers of centuries have brought us to this day. What shall our legacy be? What will our children say? Let me know in my heart when my days are through. America, America, I gave my best to you. I've made a lot of mistakes in my career, but I gave my best to you. For 50 years, like many of you, I've given my heart and soul to our nation. And I've been blessed a million times in return with the support of the American people. I've either been too young to be in the Senate because I wasn't 30 yet, and too old to stay as president. But I hope you know how grateful I am to all of you. I can honestly say, and I mean this from the bottom, give you my word as a Biden, I can honestly say I'm more optimistic about the future than I was when I was elected as a 29-year-old United States Senator. I mean it. Folks, we just have to remember who we are. We're the United States of America. And there's nothing we cannot do when we do it together. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you.
A speech that was largely a litany of accomplishments, getting personal near the end. The president saying, for 50 years, I have given my heart and soul to our nation. I have been blessed a million times in return. First Lady Dr. Joe Biden joining him at the podium, celebrating that speech. The president delivering the keynote address here at the Democratic National Convention, talking about his decision to drop out of the race, making his case for Vice President Kamala Harris and against former President Trump. Kristen Walker, Hallie Jackson joining me here in the anchor booth as we continue to watch Kamala Harris now greeting the president. Truly a passing of the torch occurring on the stage. Kristen, jump in here. What are your thoughts?
Well, this is the moment here, President Biden embracing his Vice President Kamala Harris, as he quite literally does pass the torch to her to take over the top of the ticket. We are witnessing a dramatic and extraordinary moment in political history, Lester, when you think about the fact that President Biden delivered this speech when just 4 weeks ago he thought he would be the one accepting his party's nomination. And tonight, he instead delivered a forceful call to action, urging Democrats, urging the country to vote for Vice President Kamala Harris. He talked about why he got into this race in the first place, a fight for the nation's democracy, which we have heard him talk about so often, a fight for the soul of the nation. And then he talked about some of what he sees as his biggest accomplishments, helping to pull the country out of the pandemic, passing the infrastructure law, the gun safety law. He is relishing this moment, Lester. If you look at the time, he spoke for more than 45 minutes, making this speech tonight longer than his 2020 acceptance speech, his 2008 VP acceptance speech, and his 2012 VP acceptance speech.
You look at this moment, Lester. President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris on stage. A month ago, this would have been the last night of the Democratic National Convention. This would have been the Thursday night finale, the Biden-Harris ticket. Instead, it is anything but. It is a Democratic race that is reimagined, as you see the family here on stage and those little waves.
Hallie,
you see Kamala Harris taking the mantle from President Biden, Lester.
It didn't, maybe I'm wrong, it didn't feel like a farewell speech. It felt more like a State of the Union.
He's not trying to say goodbye forever, Lester. He's still got time in office, and he made that very clear.
And he wants to be a volunteer for this campaign.
Yeah, he's still got work to do. And talking with people close to him, he is going to be a presence on the campaign trail to the degree that the campaign wants him to, as you're looking at him, still on stage, by the way, basking in this ovation. An emotional moment, not just for him, but for so many of his friends and allies, Lester. A 4-minute and 23-second ovation for President Biden when he walked on stage. And now here he is taking in these moments, if not a goodbye, Lester, at least a swan song and maybe the last sort of huge speech of his political career.
Tom Llamas no doubt has a read on how this crowd took it in from down on the floor. Tom?
Hey, Lester, I'll tell you this. It was an incredibly long speech, but the crowd here in Chicago was hanging on to the president's every word. You can see the signs, "We love Joe," whosever idea that was, in the Democratic Party. It was pretty brilliant because it's created some very memorable shots here at this convention. Supporters all throughout the Union Center right here, the United Center, carrying those signs up. And again, I got to tell you, I mean, every part of that speech, the people here in this convention hall were supporting Joe Biden. They were clapping. There were people crying. There were people cheering. And again, at the end, I mean, when he wrapped that speech up with those lyrics from the song, you could hear everything. There are a small number of protesters. They have sort of gathered around me right now as we started this. But I would say they're a very, very, very minuscule part of this convention right now. It's a tiny population of people that are protesting right now. They're obviously protesting the war in Gaza and the U.S.'s role in that. But for the most part, there's joy, there's celebration on this floor. I'm going to send it back to you guys.
And as Hallie noted, this is night one of the Democratic National Convention. Our coverage continues from Chicago right after this break. Welcome back to our special coverage of the Democratic National Convention here on NBC. We just heard President Biden's keynote address. The president making a forceful case for why he wants Vice President Harris to take on former President Trump. A historic speech, really unlike anything we've seen in modern American history, with the president appearing on stage with Harris to pass the torch. We want to bring back our panel here. And Kristen, give us a sense what to watch for now. This was obviously a huge speech. This is night one. How does this mesh with what we're going to see over the next 3 nights?
It is incredible to think this is night one. President Biden and the First Lady will now go to California. They'll watch the rest of this convention on TV. Like the rest of us, we are going to hear from the biggest names, the biggest stars in the Democratic Party, including former President Barack Obama, former President Bill Clinton. I am told that former President Obama will view this as an all-hands-on-deck moment. That's going to be his call to action. And then, of course, we're going to be hearing from Tim Walz, Governor Tim Walz, a chance for him to introduce himself to the American public. Of course, he's a teacher, he's a coach, he'll talk, I am told, in deeply personal tones. And then, of course, the big night, Thursday night, when we hear from Vice President Kamala Harris. My big question for that night, what I'll be watching for, does she build on and echo everything we heard from President Biden tonight, or does she find ways to carve out a separate path, a new path, from a policy perspective and also from her vision for the future?
Yeah, the platform here was completed before she came on board, so her fingerprints really aren't on that. So we will find out more about what her thinking is. Hallie?
To Kristen's point here, this is a moment for Kamala Harris to define who she is. People know her, of course, as the vice president, but not as the presidential nominee for the Democratic Party. And so as one campaign source put it to me, the function of this week is to make that clear to the American public who exactly she is. So we'll be watching for her to do that with the speeches, now really turning to focus on Kamala Harris. So many, look at the signage in the hall about Joe Biden. Thank you, Joe. We love you, Joe. That will likely shift throughout the course of this week to focus more on the vice president herself. It's also been notable, very emotional for President Biden tonight. You saw him wiping away tears even before he opened his mouth to begin his remarks tonight as he hugged his daughter who introduced him there. Very resonant for him at this moment. But as much as tonight was a love letter to Joe Biden in many ways, Lester, as you've been saying, you also saw Donald Trump as the piñata here. You saw a number of Democrats going after him repeatedly in sharp terms of a departure from the sort of famous Michelle Obama line, when they go low, we go high. They went after him in attacking his policies and his positions here. The former president himself is on a battleground blitz this week. He is in a number of key swing states in what is the busiest week of his campaign so far, looking to cast Kamala Harris and Tim Walz as too liberal for the American people. But even as Mr. Trump's allies want to see him focus on policy and focus on that record, he is in many ways not doing that, instead going after her in deeply personal terms, Lester.
All right, Peter Alexander, tell us where you were watching all this and what you saw.
Lester, I tell you, there are thousands of Democrats who are going home tonight exhilarated, but perhaps exhausted as well. And before we go, there's also time for one quick fact check. The former president, Donald Trump, repeatedly saying that President Biden would tonight try to reclaim the party's nomination. Clearly, that did not happen. Instead, not only heaping praise on Kamala Harris, but helping celebrate the things that the two of them accomplished together. Lester, back to you.
All right, Peter Alexander, thank you. That concludes our coverage of the first night of the Democratic National Convention. Join Savannah Guthrie and me tomorrow for the second night. That's tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern, right here on NBC. We'll also have a full wrap-up tomorrow on Today and on NBC Nightly News. I'm Lester Holt. Thank you for watching, and good night from Chicago.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.